We just spent 9 days in beautiful Puerto Rico exploring the historic streets of Old San Juan, the tropical mini island of Culebra, and Puerto Rico's underrated west coast in the town of Rincon. In this video, we're going to be telling you how much everything costs on our trip and giving you some money-saving tips so you can make the most out of your Puerto Rico vacation. I'm going to break down our budget into categories, which will be outlined as chapters in this video. But before we get started, I want to let you know that we made full detailed vlogs of this trip. I will link them down in the description below if you want to get even further into your trip planning for your ultimate vacation to Puerto Rico. Now, as a disclaimer, the prices are for 2 people traveling as a couple in Puerto Rico. Also, we consider ourselves to be mid-range travelers, so we're not exactly budget and we're not exactly luxury. This is just what we spent. Just in case you don't know, Puerto Rico is part of the US, so they use the US dollar for currency. And you don't need a passport if you're a US citizen and want to visit. Now let's get into the first section, which is transportation. I won't be including the price of flights to get to the island because obviously that varies based on time of year, where you're coming from, how many people you have, and so on. During our 9 days in Puerto Rico, the different types of transportation we took: a rental car, a few different Ubers, a flight on a very small plane over to Culebra, and a golf cart once we were on that small island. Our first stop on our trip was Old Town San Juan, and you can take an Uber from the airport, which costs about $10 each way, which isn't too expensive considering. You can rent your own car and drive in Old San Juan, but I would not recommend that. The streets are very narrow, parking is a nightmare, and everywhere you want to get to in San Juan is very easily walkable. After a few days in Old San Juan, we took an Uber back to the San Juan airport, and then we caught a short 30-minute flight to the island of Culebra, which is also considered part of Puerto Rico. We took this flight with an airline called Cape Air, which flies all over the Caribbean. I am actually an airline employee, so we used my airline discount, and it only cost us $60 total to fly to Culebra. Online prices for someone who doesn't have my airline perks range from $69 all the way up to $350. So flying to Culebra is definitely the more expensive option. You can also take a ferry there, but it takes a considerably longer amount of time. Once we arrived in Culebra, we had the option of renting a car, a 4x4 Jeep, or golf cart. Golf carts are by far the most affordable option, and the island is really small, and we had no problem getting around on our little golf cart that we rented. Our Airbnb host had a golf cart available for rental, which is what we went through. It cost $60 a day and we paid in cash. You can also rent golf carts through an agency that's near the airport, but ours was just super convenient that it came with the Airbnb. But you can pay up to $90 per day if you're getting a larger or newer golf cart. Since the island is so small, we didn't have to pay for any gas because we barely used any on our time on the island. After an amazing couple of days in Culebra, we returned to San Juan on the same Cape Air flight and rented a car through budget so we could drive to the west coast. We rented the car for 4 days and it cost a total of $209.52. The car was small and really fuel efficient, so we ended up only having to pay about $22 when we refilled the car when we dropped it off. An awesome way to bypass some of San Juan's pretty bad traffic is by going on the toll roads, which were included with our budget car rental. That takes our transportation total to just under $500 for our 9 days in Puerto Rico. Our next category is accommodation, and we stayed in 4 different places during our trip. We arrived into San Juan very late the first night, so we decided to stay just at the hotel that was attached to the airport. That one night cost us over $210, which is pretty pricey, but the hotels right around the airport are about that price. That's pretty average. For the rest of our time in San Juan, we headed to the historic Old Town, where we stayed right in the middle at a boutique hotel, which was very cute, called La Terrazza de San Juan. The cost of 2 nights in this hotel would have been $306, but we used Chase Ultimate Reward points, so our cost was $0. After San Juan, we headed to Culebra, where we booked an Airbnb, which cost $92 a night. The island is really small and there aren't really hardly any hotels, so you're more than likely going to be staying in an Airbnb or some kind of guest house. Our next stop was Rincon on the west coast of Puerto Rico, highly recommended by the way, and we stayed 3 nights in the Lazy Parrot Inn. For Rincon, we had a few Chase points left over, so we ended up using that for our 3 nights. Using half Chase points and half cash, we spent $239. Otherwise, it would have been about $456. That brings our total accommodation cost to $486 plus several thousand Chase Ultimate Rewards points. This next section is my favorite one, where we're going to talk about food and drinks. In this section, I'll be covering how much all of our food and drinks cost that we bought, and I'll give you an idea of what things cost, such as grab-and-go coffee or a few drinks at the bar. Just as a side note, Puerto Rico is a little bit more on the expensive side when it comes to food and drink. If you've been following us on this channel for a while, you know that I love coffee. Okay, we both love coffee. And so we drank a lot of it on this trip, and each takeout coffee costs an average of between $4 and $6. If you're looking to save money on your trip to Puerto Rico, I would definitely skip the cocktails. If you go to a bar in Old San Juan, or really anywhere we went to a bar, a cocktail is gonna be between $15 and $20. So it's definitely more on the LA side of prices, which is what we're used to. But if you go somewhere smaller, like a mom and pop place, or we found some cocktails and beer and wine on the beach in Culebra, it was more like $5 for a beer and $10 for a pina colada, which wasn't too bad. You might want to cut down on the booze if you're on a budget. Another tip on how to save money is to just go to the supermarket and buy snacks and drinks there. You'll be saving a lot of money on food, and grocery store prices were about on par with what they are in mainland US. At an average sit-down restaurant, if you get a drink and an entree, you can expect to pay about $25 to $50 per person. But keep in mind that Puerto Rico has amazing food. It is a foodie's paradise, so it really runs the gamut of what you can get. You can get super cheap street food or even up to fine dining, so it really depends on what your budget is and what you're looking for in your trip. Obviously, food and beverage is very important to us, so this was one of our highest expenses at $1,191. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Our next and final category is kind of miscellaneous. It'll cover our activities, admissions, and other things we did while we were on the island. In historic Old San Juan, we decided to visit the Castillo. That is a national monument that was covered under our America the Beautiful National Parks Pass, so that's a money-saving tip if you have that Parks Pass. Always take it with you. But if we didn't have that, admission would have been $10 per adult, and kids under 15 were free. If you visit the island of Culebra like we did, you cannot miss Flamenco Beach. It is considered the best beach in Puerto Rico, but there is a cost associated with it. Parking is $5 per day and admission is $2 per person. If you enjoy surfing, Puerto Rico has fantastic surf breaks on the West Coast. Kevin rented a board and it was $22 for a half day. Other miscellaneous expenses were souvenir t-shirts, which were $20 to $25 each, and also we went to a pharmacy because we both got sick on that trip and we spent about $13 for some medication. That brings our miscellaneous and activities admissions total to $146.36. So our grand total for 9 days in Puerto Rico, we spent $2,323.51. Make sure you check out the full-length vlogs of our time in Puerto Rico. We did a ton of stuff and had so much fun. And please hit us up in the comments if you have any questions. This is Kelly from The Awkward Tourists. Peace out. That is a national monument, so it was covered under our America the Beautiful. That's not too bad. Oh, look at that dog.